Thank you very much, Joe. First off, congratulations, wins. Fantastic victory here for the Taipei Assassins versus SK Gaming. Yesterday, you guys almost won versus Starhorn Royal Club. How did you guys manage to win this one?
恭喜你们今天赢得胜利。那昨天对皇族，你们也差点赢得胜利。那今天你们做了什么不同的，让你们赢得这次的胜利呢？
今天就是我们回去有想过为什么我们昨天输，然后就是让自己冷静下来，就是赶快想好今天比赛要怎么打，然后换个战术，因为对每个队伍的战术都不一样，然后想办法用新的战术来赢得这场比赛。
They went back and they were calm and they went to the drawing board and think of their strategy to face the team today, and that paid off.
Well, that's one win already for you today. Later up, you're going up against TSM, the North American team. How do you think that matchup will play out?
今天你们赢了1胜，那接下来要遇到 TSM， 然后你觉得那场会发生什么事呢？
我觉得我们双方实力应该是差不多，然后我觉得 TSM 他们的中路非常的强，我觉得只要我们就是不要让他们中路拿到太多优势的话，我觉得我们可以有机会赢他们的。
We think our strengths are almost the same, and TSM has a really good mid. But if we all perform right, I think we'll have a really good game.
Well, we'll see how that game plays out. Now, Wins, you were on the world stage last year with the Gamma Bears. How well do you think you can do here now that you got the Taipei Assassins with you?
你之前跟 Gamma Bear 有打过 Worlds， 那现在你跟 TPA， 你觉得你可以达到什么好成绩呢？
因为其实去年是直接进8强，然后我们直接遇到一个单出的那个冠军的 SKT1， 然后我们确实是被打得非常的惨，可是这一年哦，我觉得我自己也想了很多，然后也换了一个新队伍、新气象，然后我觉得这是我们可以拿到更好成绩，因为我觉得我这一年都努力了很多，因为去年真的打得不够好，就觉得有点难过，就今年要打回来，讨回公道。
So it's unfortunate they faced SKT, the eventual champion last year, but this year he put a lot of work into it, and hopefully he'll do better this year.
Well, this was a great start already. Congratulations. Thank you very much. All right, now we're going to kick it back over to the guys at the desk to analyze TPA's win.
Thank you very much, Shocks. And what a game to kick off day 2. Yesterday, we had a killer match to start day 1 of Worlds. Today, similar case. SK come out swinging. Definitely a marked improvement. Let's talk picks and bans, team compositions. Monty, you were not particularly sold by TPA and what they put together.
No. I mean, they won this game, but and obviously team compositions aren't anything. They outplayed and kind of out-rotated their opponent in the mid lane when that whole Baron skirmish happened, and then they forced them back and kind of took the inhibitor as a result. But when we're actually looking at the picks and bans here, the issue is that they're riding a very small power spike with their Siege, with Lucian and Syndra, and Janna really does nothing. They only have one form of engage, which is a Syndra stun, which was why it took them so long to close. They couldn't really get a team fight. They got a nice fight when SK was in the Baron pit, but other than that, there's not a good way for them to actually win the game. And so with very little engage, there wasn't a backline threat because SK could just stand there, and if Ryze walks up, you just charm the Ryze, you kill the Ryze first, and then you can collapse on the backline once the front line is dead, and the kiting will come in from SK at that point. So there's no point to the Janna. You're not going to have a good disengage, and you don't have engage either. You don't have really good siege. It's just wishy-washy, and against better teams, you have to be able to draft better than that.
So. I want to cut you off because I'm exactly opposite to your opinion here, which is that I actually love the Janna a lot because we don't see her much, but my read on her is this. Number one, I think she is the best support in the game at 20 minutes because that is when she gets level 9 and she has a 50 attack damage shield to put on a 1-item AD carry. And when you've got a Lucian who does so much physical spell damage, he is far and away the strongest champion on the map with a Janna shield on him. And we saw that timing window, the 22 minutes they come in, Syndra can one-shot somebody, the Kha'Zix has power spike with the Brutalizer. They've got so much darn damage there that things just blow up. And Syndra is enough engage against champions that squishy, where no one's really come online yet. And that team turns into, by the way, we've got a late game Ryze, by the way, late game Kha'Zix, and then even Lucian was actually building a Blade of the Ruin King so we could deal with Mundo late game as well. So this kind of team turns on at 20 minutes and then grows. And I thought it was a wonderful team comp that eventually just builds into an unstoppable team.
It helped that SK walked into a number of Syndra stuns as well. Crepo, let's add here. We'll keep this conversation rolling.
I know we had a couple of replays coming, so I'm going to keep it short. I would have still preferred a Thresh for multiple reasons, just for like extra engage or just Thresh Syndra looking for picks. But what worries me is what's interesting is the Sona pick early. It opens you up to get countered really hard, and I feel like TPA dropped the ball on that. I watched the entire bot lane again, and BB and J just weren't in synergy. They kept going for trades one by one, separated. There was no tornado follow-up. There was no Lucian Q poke in lane, and they just basically allowed Sona Tristana to tie farm Lucian Janna, which should never happen, even after First Blood, and that's a really big mistake. Secondly, one thing on SK side, I would have loved Unrated to pick up an earlier Chalice and maybe even an earlier Mikhails. Because he didn't even build that after finishing his locket. I really think he needed kills.
There's a theme on the analyst desk, Crepo disliking support build orders. Prolly, we haven't heard anything from you. I want you to take me through our first replay. Let's pull this up. First of all, Gilius deserves a high five. His early game presence was a marked improvement from yesterday's games, and SK put a lot of focus on dragons. Let's roll this clip out and Prolly talk us through it.
So I really like this fight specifically for Jez's position. You can see him coming around the back right now, and right now he just disappears. TP has no idea where he goes. And this kind of gives them a lot of indecision, and they don't know what to do. At this point, Wins jumps in right when they see Ahri, and you see the rest of them in the pit. They're just too scared to move out with Ahri behind them. And now it's Freddy and Jezzy's just closing in on these threes without, much escape. And it's just kind of TPA not really making that decisive decision early, and now it's up to SK kind of to pick and choose who they kill first. Yeah, you were talking about the fact that you felt TPA was maybe afraid of Freddy and just trying to get away from him. Do you still feel the same after rewatching the replay? Yeah, rewatching it really did seem they were more scared of Ahri, and then once they saw Ahri, they were like, this Mundo's in front of us and we don't want to touch him. Yeah, he managed to run a wreck. Now, before we move on to the next replay, what's your take on the game? I see you wanted to chime in while the disagreements were happening. TPA, they sort of fell behind early, but they strategically outplayed SK and got control back. I think the biggest turning point was definitely that Baron, and that was what TPA really needed. They didn't have good engage, and SK doing Baron basically gave TPA an engage. It forced SK to sit in that pit and do that objective, and TPA just walked in and fought. And if they had just left that Baron, what was TPA going to do? They can't really run them down. It was a good dodge on the crescendo as well. Yeah, we actually have a replay of the Baron fight if we can pull that one up. This is the one that TPA comes in and cleans people up. So the thing that's going on here, by the way, is the call for SK is to finish Baron. Candy Panda flash crescendo to try to stop TPA from coming in to stop the smite. Problem is he misses Win. So let's roll the clip out, and you're going to watch him go for the flash crescendo here. And it's just barely away from Kha'Zix, so it doesn't quite tag him. He actually walks forward into it, and he actually gets into range to smite. You're going to see Wins actually puts a smite down here. It's just a little bit too early is all. But at this point, it's a big misplay. So Sona's out of mana, no Chalice. Candy Panda also flashes the wall. He's so afraid. Realizes, oh wait, I'm not dead. Rocket jumps back in, but by now it's already too late, as Jess is flashed out himself and can't get back in. And so it's a really badly coordinated fight by SK. It's of course easy then for TPA to clean up the rest. I just want to add in very quickly, Morning, this is his second professional game on Syndra. For TPA, when they have played Syndra in the GPL, it is Chowie that has been playing it. He pulled out Syndra yesterday for the first time. That was a great stun. And yes, positioning it's made easier, but he hit those stuns multiple times throughout the game. Yeah, Justice also didn't even have his ult. He had already burned it before that fight started, so that was another problem. Yeah, adding on to that the Crescendo was then down for the fight. I completely understand what went through in Raider's head there. Like a lot of times people call burn Baron, okay, support goes Stalin, but what are you going to do once you get the Baron? If you're 2 ultis down against that team coming in at you, that desperately, like Probably said, needs an engage, and basically you become their engage, then it's going to get really hard. Final thoughts, Monty, before we move on? Yeah, and that's the thing. You know they don't have engage, so you don't flash to engage. You wait for them to walk into you. You use the Crescendo as a counter engage, tie up their front line. That way the Janna never does anything because she's too busy protecting the back line that doesn't need protecting. You burn down Ryze, then you just follow up and clean up. Well, definitely a game that got the analyst desk talking. Very exciting. All right, LPL's Edward Gaming and the international wildcard team at Dark Passage are preparing for our second game of the day. And I think we're actually going to take a look in at the venue in a moment. We can actually see Name, the rest of the team in their practice room, getting themselves ready. Dark Passage will also be taking to the Rift. They're squeezing in some time on the games. We'll be back in a second, guys.
Jesus has caught BB around the backside. Is he going to get it? Oh, goes down. That's going to be Gilius that picks it up, and SK